Hello, everyone, and welcome to Genius Game Recap Episode 2. I'm here with Cory Wurtenberger. I, of course, am Zach Wurtenberger. You already know that. I am so excited to be doing another episode of this. The show that the UK papers are calling way too complicated, and we are saying every episode it's not complicated enough. Cory, what are you feeling right now? Is this episode too complicated, not complicated enough, just the right amount of complicated?
I'm feeling pretentious because
Yeah,
I
me
do
too.
feel very snobby being like, well, this episode way too simple. Meanwhile, the media is in outrage. What do you mean there's tip offs? I think this episode was a much better designed game, a step in the right direction. Also, this game's already been played, so
Yeah,
I can't give them the most credit in terms of thinking it up. But I think this was a much stronger episode than the premiere. What did you think?
I agree. I thought it was a much stronger episode. I also thought it was a little too simple for me still, which is
Yeah.
so funny that there was outrage from people saying I turned the show off after 10 minutes. Why don't they make, shows for normal people? And I'm like, that's every other show. This is our show that we want to be overly complicated. Um,
I think we're
yeah.
still yearning for the genius moment. Obviously, we're not going to get Extreme Waves, which is a common song played in the original version, but that big twist, you're blindsided as an audience member, you're shocked. They kind of did it this episode with Amanfi, but it didn't work. So it kind of flopped a little bit. But I think this was a stronger episode. There's a ton to discuss, especially coming off of episode 1, which I think was more introductory. It feels like we're in the mix. I know some of these relationships a little bit better. We have a better kind of lay of the land in terms of this cast. I don't have too much else to say. Do you want to kind of just
Yeah.
dive into it, Zach?
Well, I got a few things before we start. Of course, the other big question that I was hearing from everyone is, where do I watch this? I don't know how to watch this. If you're still at the place where you don't know how to watch the show, obviously the Rob as a Podcast patron group is going to have everything you need to watch the show. It's all right there. If you're not a patron, you still want to watch, I would personally recommend searching up Genius Game UK and then putting a few extra keywords in there that might help you find shows. Obviously, you could use a VPN as well. I don't know, maybe DM me. Maybe I'll be able to help with it. Whatever. We want as many people to watch this show as possible. Okay. So if you want to watch it, you're going to be able to watch it. It's just going to take a little bit more legwork than, let's say, a normal show on TV.
I want you guys to understand. If we could just post the link and you guys click it and watch the episodes, we would do that. I promise. But instead, if you think the episode is too complicated, the way to get to the episodes has to be complicated as well. It's part of the experience. It's like you're playing your own main match in a way.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And just be thankful you don't have to read the bum diddly umptious subs
Shout
to get
outs.
the show. Shout out shout out bum diddly umptious. All right, so should we just get into the episode? One more thing. Subscribe to the Rob as a Podcast YouTube page. Also, if you're a fan of what we do, subscribe to the Genius what is it? The Genius feed on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to our specific feed. That's how you get the Genius season 3 with Rob and Steven someday. So it definitely helps with the show. Also, any ratings you can give, greatly appreciated. Would love that. All right. All that out of the way. Let's get into the episode.
And I believe the feed name is We Know the Genius.
Yes.
That you'll find it. So the episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the pre-main match stuff, but there was not too much that happening. What I did enjoy about this episode is kind of new era Survivor, old Australian Survivor. We're getting more of these intro packages as the season's going on, which I appreciate. We got to see a bit of Allison, a bit of Amanfi. I thought it was a very fun little segment. And also, you get to see what these people are thinking going into the main match. You get a lot of these pre-round confessionals of my goal today is this. Charlotte's I won the last main match. This time I'm going to focus on people and try not to make too many waves and just make it through. Whereas other players are kind of trying to do a little bit more. So I appreciated that. I think it's fun to see what people are planning to do right before they deviate from those plans drastically.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we kind of saw Charlotte and Scott kind of coming in. They got a little heat on them. They're the ones who were kind of the winners of last episode. And both of them are definitely trying to lower their threat level going into this episode.
It's very funny contrasting it to the South Korean genius, which we won't talk too much about, but this exact same scenario happened on episode 2 where the player who dominated the first main match walks in and says, "Yeah, it was me, guys." Whereas Scott was a lot more, I think, cautious about how he approached the situation. He said, it was all of us. But before he said it was all of us, he did say, "Yeah, it was me." But
Yeah, it was
no,
me.
I don't mean that. It
Nah.
was,
It
yeah, it
wasn't
was, I
me. It
mean,
wasn't me.
it was really Bedalia, if anyone.
And then they were all
But
like, "No, it was him. It was him."
yeah. So Scott had a confessional I thought was kind of interesting. He said his inner circle was Bedalia, Ken, and Charlotte, which I think is notable for 2 different reasons. First of all, India was not in there, which I think if we watched that first episode, it kind of seemed like India was in that core, at least on that side of things, which that, that is consistent throughout the episode. She is not with them. And second of all, ultimately, fast forwarding a bit, when Scott has to pick someone for the death match, these other 3 people are 3 of the options.
Yeah.
So, again, he kind of got painted into a corner into who he had to pick, but we'll get there. You want to just dive into what the zombie game is, Zach? I've got a lot of notes.
Sure. I mean, if you'd like to take the lead, because I know
Yeah.
you just rewatched the South Korean version of the zombie
Yes.
game, and I know it's pretty similar to this one. Yeah, why don't you take
Wait,
the lead on that?
I have a pet peeve first. I have a complaint,
Mhm.
and this isn't a complaint towards the audience.
Yeah.
They say like the customer's always right. You guys were wrong. A lot of people were like, "Oh, this zombie game you describe, it sounds familiar to something from The Devil's Plan." No, 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 no. The Devil's Plan took the zombie game from the South Korean genius, and
Right.
then the Genius game, the UK version, took it from the original South Korean Genius. This isn't a co-opting of the Devil's Plan. Anyways,
Yeah.
so the zombie game was played in the South Korean Genius in episode 4 with 10 remaining players. Now, I'll do a little bit of spoiling for the South Korean Genius. I won't name names. It was the exact same game with the
Yep.
exact same number of people with no rule deviations and basically the exact same result.
Yes. It's as if Ben literally watched this happen and then said, "I could do that," and then did it.
So before we dive into Ben's strategy, because it's a pretty simple one, let's talk about the game. So everyone at the start randomly selects a card. That card will either say zombie or human, not person. Shout outs. And that will determine how you play the game. So the game is played in 3 rounds. And the goal of the game, if you're a human, is to accrue as many points as possible. Whoever has the most points will win the main match. Now, how do you get points? When 2 human beings touch, there's this big sphere in the center. If they touch, they're both humans, they both gain 1 point. It's the only way to gain points. There's no secret points hidden around the house. Now, if a human touches a zombie, the zombie turns the human into another zombie. No one gets points.
And now all of a sudden, whatever points you had as a human are gone. They're moot.
And if 2 zombies touch, nothing happens. That's the general basic understanding of how the game works. Now, let's talk about win conditions. The genius always loves win conditions. In order for the zombies to win, the original 2 zombies, they need to make everyone else zombies. It's the only way.
Yeah.
If any humans are remaining, the zombies cannot win. That sounds like a raw deal if you're the zombies. Here's the benefit. As a zombie, it's pretty difficult to become the elimination candidate because at the end of the game, when scores are tallied, the winner is the human with the most points and the loser is the human with the least amount of points. As long as there's any disparity amongst humans, the zombies cannot be the deathmatch candidate.
Yes.
So there's like a certain logic to like, oh, I'll just be a zombie and chill this game. Obviously, that's sometimes not the play. The final kind of wrinkle to the game was 2. First of all, there's cures. Everyone gets 1 little vial of liquid. You could take that vial after you touch a zombie, and it'll make you a human. You have to do it in a certain period of time, which I did have a certain question to you about, Zach, strategically. And then the last note is if all of the humans existing at the end of the game, say there's only 3 humans existing, they all have the same amount of points. In that case, they all win and they get to select amongst the zombies who the deathmatch candidate is. All right, it's a lot to digest, but the very basic gist of the game is humans want to touch other humans to gain points. Zombies want to make sure that the humans don't get this massive joint win, and more basically, want to make other people zombies.
Yeah, it's another kind of complicated, fun, interesting social strategic game that we saw solved within the first 5 minutes of it being played. I
Yeah.
think you can actually, in this episode, see the moment where it's over, which is when the game gets announced, funny enough. And Ben, off on the corner, instantly goes, like, oh, like he knows what it is. And yeah, so the winning strategy here, which Ben instantly knows because he's seen this show before, very, very Carson like, honestly, the way he just like kind of keeps knowing the solutions of these games, um, is that if you can get a group of 4 people total who you all trust as humans and kind of just go like, I touch this person, then this person, then this person, she touches me, then him, he touches her, then him. You know what I'm saying?
Everyone
Like,
touches everyone.
if everyone touches everyone and none of those 4 people are zombies, then that maximizes the total amount of points that you can get. If everyone sticks to that plan, the other humans, the best that they can do possibly is tie, and it just completely ices the zombies out of the game. Ben does the strategy, and unfortunately for us as the viewer, he doesn't choose any zombies to be in his group. And as a zombie, like, you know, this strategy is basically unbeatable, unfortunately. So, yeah,
Yeah.
Corey,
Well,
I was gonna
there's a
ask you, like,
few. Go ahead.
I was gonna ask you, like, going into this game, do you want to be a zombie or do you want to be a human?
I think you want to be a human. I think a lot of times in these games, you're assigned roles. And often having this special role helps. It makes it a lot easier to win, or at the very least to avoid the death match. However, especially if you're Ben knowing the rules and like understanding the solution to the game, being a human is almost objectively the right choice. And the reason why, I think there's this idea of being a zombie is like maybe not better, but safer because it's really hard to kind of get into be the deathmatch candidate. Even if you lose, they pick amongst the losing zombies, and you still have a 1 in 5 chance, is what happened in this episode, or 1 in 6 chance actually, of being picked.
Mhm.
However, if you're the human with the lowest points, which means you would be the deathmatch candidate, at any point you could just become a zombie. You can
Yeah,
go, hey, Charlotte, I know you're a zombie. Can we touch? And all of a sudden, you're out of the pool and you're in this other pool. And that's
right.
exactly what Scott did. So I like the humans because you get to be flexible and you could become a zombie if you want. Um, yeah, I don't think it's close. I think human is just the answer.
I also think that in any of these games, unless it's something like the traders where you get to be that role forever, you're just in a better spot if you get to be the role that doesn't instantly have to lie to everyone. And we'll talk about Charlotte versus Amalfi's approach, but Amalfi does get a lot of crap throughout this episode and towards the end for lying to people when that is literally how the game was designed to be. Like, the zombies
Yeah.
are meant to keep their role a secret. They're meant to try and deceive people, and getting that role like does kind of screw you over, especially at the start of this game when people are still trying to get their impressions of someone, and like, you know, it put Amanfi in a tough spot as the second zombie, I would say.
Another critical rule that I forgot to mention that is the reason why Ben's strategy works. You're only allowed to touch each individual 1 time.
Oh yeah,
So you can't
yeah.
just continuously farm the same touches, which that seems obvious. The key point for Ben's strategy to work is twofold. Number one, there's no zombies in your initial group,
Hmm.
which he kind of had a good chance of by the fact that he knew Charlotte was a zombie immediately. So instead of a 2 in 9 chance, it's a 1 in 8 chance. So that's already helpful. That's part number one. And part number two is closing what he calls the bubble. If that bubble is open at any point, your surefire win, it becomes impossible to calculate. You have no idea where the points are standing.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And I think that a fun part of this episode was watching like kind of Ben's plan versus Ben's execution, because at the end of the day, like, it 100% worked, but
Yeah.
it was a messy road to get there. And that was probably my favorite part of the episode. Let's start with Ben just instantly, like, obviously he knows a strategy, and for whatever reason he decides to instantly announce it to the entire group. Why did he do that? What possible strategic benefit could there be to letting everybody know this plan?
Have you ever had a teacher ask a question in class and you know the answer?
Yeah.
It's really tempting to raise your hand. For
Mhm.
me, it's like this feeling that like is rising in my chest of I have to say it. And I think that's what Ben is. First of all, he's a professor, so I'm sure he's very familiar with that concept. I didn't hate it because ultimately his strategy is so foolproof that like knowing it as a zombie doesn't help. The only thing you can do as a zombie is like make sure you're in that bubble.
Yeah.
And here's the problem, Zach. Let's say Charlotte's included. Charlotte's keeping it a secret. She gets included in the bubble. What does she even do? Like she'll get exposed to be a zombie very quickly.
Yeah.
And it's not like she's winning then.
Well, so let's talk about Charlotte's decision making here because
Yeah.
Charlotte is the second person to get the zombie card, the first one that we see. And Charlotte decides the way she's going to play this is full, total honesty. Basically, she hears this plan from Ben, instantly goes into that room and says, "Hey, just so you guys know, I'm the zombie." What did you think about Charlotte's strategy here? Did you think it was good? Is that something you would have done? Or do you kind of wish that she had kind of played the game a little bit more?
Yeah, when it happened, I thought she was being super dumb. I thought it was a really stupid call. I think you have
Mhm.
to be pretty tactful about who you tell these things, and you have to be able to identify whether sharing the information is useful in this game. Because Scott talked extensively about how valuable it would be to have a zombie in your group. He's wrong. It's
Yeah.
really hard to coordinate something between humans and a zombie. It's like, unless I'm not seeing something, Zach, did you see a way where, like, oh, now that we know Charlotte's a zombie, here's our way to win the game?
No, see, I actually do disagree with you. I think that what Charlotte did here was great because what Charlotte heard in that moment, she heard that strategy that Ben just put out there, and she instantly thought to herself, "Oh, I'm losing this game." Like
Yeah.
that strategy, those four, like they're I can't beat that if they're not willing to touch. Like I can either try to infiltrate that and piss a lot of people off, or knowing who the winners are going to be basically ahead of time, I can immediately start my social game to try and get on their good side. Because knowing that those four are going to be the ones who choose at the end, they didn't choose Charlotte, who was the winner of the last game. They chose Charlotte's closest ally because Charlotte was the one who was honest with them from the jump. Scott was the one who was playing on the other side that they were able to nominate without the guilt of going to someone who basically laid her game down for them in the first moment. So I thought that was actually a really smart strategy from Charlotte. Not great TV, but at the same time, I think what Amanfi did was great TV and almost completely bit him in the ass. So it's kind of like a give and take.
Yeah, on first glance, I thought it was silly, and then you see how the game plays out, and I think it was pretty ingenious. When I saw her then go and tell Scott she's also a zombie, and then you start thinking, how does Charlotte even end up in the death match? And it kind of becomes pretty hard to imagine because if if the zombies end up winning, she's chilling. If that majority group ends up getting their joint win, she already has some favor with them. Those are kind
Mhm.
of the two scenarios you have to prepare for, right? So I think she was in good shape. I think it was the right call, but again, a little bit boring. But I want to talk about Ben for a second because he
Mhm.
has this idea for the strategy. He's trying to make this bubble of four people, including himself. And very similar to last episode, it just formed quickly. He said,
Yeah.
you're mine. Now, there was a little bit of drama there. So let's talk about Ben's group. Ultimately, we land on who is it? It's India, Basha, and Bex,
Yes.
along with
With
Ben.
Allison sitting there as the alternate basically, which I
Poor
can
Allison.
respect.
Exactly. Poor Allison. She was just suspicious apparently.
Yeah.
Many people thought so.
Well, what I found funny with Ben is the group kind of forms, and Ben then goes, Bex, I really don't want you in this group. I just
Mhm.
want to let you know I do not want you here. And she's like, oh, okay. And Bex, her internal reasoning for why she thinks this happens is she says, I don't think that Ben thinks I'm smart. I think that Ben wants to work with the
Yeah.
smarter people, and I don't think that he considers that for me. I don't necessarily know if that's the reason. I think that Ben probably didn't want Bex for the reasons that we saw throughout the game of the amount of times that Bex was going off to have like a chat with the other team. But I did think it was bold for Ben to say to her face, I don't want you in this group. And I think that Ben has been playing with a little bit of fire with some of these social connections.
Oh, he's playing with fire, gasoline, a lighter. Like
Yeah.
I think that's by design almost. I want to credit Bex here because you have to be in that group of four. Like this is the
Yeah.
hill you have to die on, and Allison did not die on that hill. Bex seemingly is just a more forceful strategic player. I think a lot of the reason why Allison was immediately kind of cast out and viewed with a suspicious eye. Number one, she's stoic, which I think a
Mhm.
lot of people find hard to read in general, one way or another. And second, I think just generally speaking, socially, she's somewhat ostracized. Not like they're pushing her away and bullying her, nothing like that. But I just think she seems to be one of the lesser connected people. And then it's just kind of easy to be like, yeah, they're probably a zombie. So I don't think
Yeah.
Allison did a ton wrong, but I think Bex did a ton right in terms of like, oh, you're suspicious of me, Ben? I don't care. I need to be in this group. And she got in the group, and as a result, was basically the kingmaker, and she made all of them kings. I don't know how that analogy works, but she was like a power player in this main match.
Yeah, I also think that just sometimes the narratives will come out where it's just like, all right, well, we all like I think Allison's a zombie. All right, now everyone thinks it. All right, now we're just assuming and living under the world where Allison's a zombie. Of course she's not. It's a Amanfi. And what's funny is we do actually then see Allison and Amanfi agree to touch. The show, this is kind of like a fun little editing moment they do where they definitely make it look like both of them are
Yeah.
safe because they show them touching. They show Amanfi taking his antidote as a way of, I guess, putting the blame onto her when he doesn't turn, to keep that suspicion out there. Or
Yeah.
when she does turn, make it like, extra suspicious on someone else. Not that it really matters at the end of the day, but I thought it was a fun move from Amanfi, who is like definitely playing the zombie game the way it's meant to be played as a zombie.
Why did he drink the cure? Like, I get like he wants to have an empty bottle to show people, but I think he should have drank it in front of more people. I'm pretty sure he was alone in a room with a camera and being like, what? I feel like that was silly. I think the whole point of like performatively drinking the cure is so people think, oh, this whole idea, Allison's the zombie, Amanfi touched and then took a thing. I think that like sells it a lot more.
Mhm.
A lot of what Amanfi does is really easy on the eyes of like the viewers. Like it's really fun.
Okay.
Whereas in the game, I'm like, what is exactly the utility of any of this? Because
Mhm.
we'll talk more about him in round 2 and 3. I loved him this episode. I don't know the
Yeah.
logic of any of it.
Well,
Like, what
but
was he going for?
that's kind of what I love in the Genius, right? Like you look at some of the biggest moves in the Genius history, right? Let's look at episode 1 uh Genius gameplay in the South Korean version, right?
Mhm.
Was that actually a good move with like trading the Garnet and all that and giving
Yeah.
I won't say his name, his own Garnet? No. No, there was no actual reason to do it, but it's fun. We love it. That's why I love Amanfi. The other big thing we see in here is that Charlotte wants to touch with Scott and have him secretly take the antidote. I don't know why we needed to do that because at this point it felt like every single
Everyone knows
person and their
Charlotte. Yeah.
mom knew Charlotte was the zombie, but look, they're playing. They're trying to play hard, and I think that this is one where the players were all ready to play. Unfortunately, the game kind of failed them because it was so easily solved.
So let's talk about the simple fact of what this game was. It was
Hmm.
Bex, India, Ben, and Basha versus Scott, Bodalia, Ken, and Charlotte, essentially.
Hmm.
And then you had a Monfi and Allison trying to figure things out by
Yeah,
themselves.
right.
Now, here's
Amanfi
the
then
problem.
kind of joins that other group.
Yeah, eventually. But here's the problem. One side, Ben's group, is
Hmm.
all humans.
Well, yeah,
Scott's
exactly.
side has Charlotte. So if they were able to identify very quickly, Charlotte's a zombie. Love you, Charlotte. Get out. Allison, come in. They could do the same strategy and we're going to have an 8-person joint win. Unfortunately, they don't believe Allison. They trust Amanfi a little bit too much. And their side, the second they make that first mistake, the game's over. So let's talk
Yeah.
about that mistake. So round 1 ends. There's 7 humans and 3 zombies. Amanfi tricked Allison. Actually, let me backtrack because I want to talk about something that Amanfi did all episode, something Paul alluded to in the first episode. Amanfi is a big proponent of it's a game. You have to lie.
Hmm.
I agree. I think all of us agree. But you can't really say that. Like everyone should understand it's a game, whatever. But the way Amanfi's lying, where he's like looking straight in your eye and he's talking to Allison, like you're not a zombie for real, right?
Hmm.
Like the excuse of it's a game. Of course I'm gonna lie. Like you have to then do damage control on the lying. Your damage control can't be lying's chill.
I guess so. I don't know. I mean, I can't criticize Amanfi for lying in the Genius, Like, I feel like these other players should kind of get on his level. They should be expecting this. I'm not really here to watch this honor integrity stuff. So, like, I'm not going to
You think I
criticize
am?
him. No, of course not. But at the same time, like, this was the zombie game. You were meant to lie. And I think that when Bedalia, towards the end of the episode, starts getting kind of, little like big in his britches about like, oh, it's honor and integrity. Like, how could Amalfi lie to us again? Which I don't even know how he lied to him the first time. I think he just talked to Paul, and he was trying to get Allison out last time. Anyways, I'm gonna be Team Amalfi from start to finish for this, just to be clear. Uh, and I don't fault him for lying as a zombie and doing his best to lie in a game that was designed for him to lie in.
So
It's the
I got
game.
in a when I played one of my social strategy games, I got in a situation where I had to call someone out for all their lying and fake alliances they were making and how messed up it was and whatever. Of course, I think lying, creating fake alliances is part of the game. But calling out dishonesty and lack of loyalty is also part of the game when you're trying to get someone to be public enemy number one, which Amanfi fell into that position very easily. And I think
Hmm.
that's where Amanfi has to have some other part of his plan because let's just talk about what Amanfi does because it's pretty wild. So
Hmm.
Amanfi convinces Scott's group that he's good. He's showing the cures and he bought an extra cure and he hid the guard. He's putting up this whole facade about how he's a human. He touches Bedalia, he touches Ken. Okay.
Yeah.
They don't take their cures, they're going to turn into zombies. What's his plan? What's he trying to accomplish?
His plan is to try to turn as many people to zombies as possible. He's a zombie. That's all you can do. The only way that you can win as a zombie is to convert all the other zombies. And the only way he can realistically do that is to infiltrate the bubble. And I don't think he has a plan to do that, but I think that's kind of something where he's like, all right, I'm going to figure that part out later. For now, let me see how many people I can get to at this point.
I hear you. I think it's fundamentally the wrong plan. Once he knows about Ben's strategy of the bubble,
Hmm.
he needs to make sure that there's humans alive at the end. He can't have it be those four because then that's when you choose amongst the zombies who the deathmatch candidate is. If he's able to keep Bedalia and Ken, all of them are humans except for him and Charlotte. And I guess, we could give Allison a zombie, right?
Hmm.
Then all of a sudden they have to reach the same amount of points
Yeah.
as Ben's side in order to avoid the deathmatch. Otherwise, one of them is the deathmatch candidates. And I forget, they have to choose amongst themselves, or I think they still can pick the zombies at that point for the deathmatch. But it still gives you better odds. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I just disagree with the sentiment of like, it's the level one thinking. I'm a zombie, make other people zombie. Like, I get that.
Hmm.
That's what you would think when you start playing the game. But really, as a zombie, what you're trying to do is make sure we don't get a joint win amongst the humans. That's the real goal because it's just not realistic to turn everyone into zombies. It never was if everyone has a cure.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. It puts him in a tougher spot when one of the zombies is so fully out. We kind of saw this in the
Yeah.
Korean version as well, because it gives everyone an escape plan, And then all of a sudden it is going to be revealed at the very end, hey, this was the starting zombie. And Amalfi would be an easy pick because they could be like, hey, Charlotte told me the truth the whole time. Amalfi never told me the truth. I think I'm gonna pick him. So I think he started trying to play, and then once he realized that this game was not winnable anymore, I think that's
Yeah.
when he pivoted and put himself in an awkward spot. So I think from the second round, the other thing that's definitely worth talking about is the micromanaging of Bex throughout this
Yeah.
episode that we saw Ben like attempt. What do you think here? Like, if you're in Ben's position and you've got Allison who just wants to, or not Allison, sorry, Bex, who just wants to go for a little chat with the other team.
Mhm.
Are you letting that happen? Or are you putting up a fight?
I don't think I have the audacity that Ben does. But
Okay.
what Ben did was right. Like he's right. There's no reason to have a talk with the other team. If we are all humans and we stick to this plan, the game is over. Why are you putting an ounce of doubt into that? And for a moment, Zach, when I
Hmm.
saw that 4 humans, 6 zombies instead of the 5-5 I was expecting, I was like, "Uh-oh, what did Bex do?" Nothing,
Yeah.
to be clear. But I'm with Ben. He's right, but I'm also with Bex that I would be pissed at Ben. Like they both
Hmm.
have their points.
Now, do you think that there would be merit to having like a secret touch? Like, like you can go into the back and do like a secret touch maybe once per game, or maybe have that like something you could pay for garnets with, just to like actually incentivize people to betray. Because when it's all out in public, like I think you're right. I don't think there was ever going to be a betrayal from that bubble. But if they could have done it in a more private way in the midst of the game, maybe there was a chance of that.
So just
I
to be
don't know.
clear, your idea is paying money to sneak into the back and get a secret touch?
I think so.
That's
I
your
don't know
plan?
that
Okay, yeah.
that might be worth 1 garnet or even 2 if
Yeah,
it's
you can't get that link from the RHAP Patreon. That's a whole different thing.
uh-huh.
Um, I think there's a lot of ways to make this game a little bit better. Um, I think the main here's the real problem. We can break it down. Ben didn't have to come up with this solution. He knew the solution. And that's
Yeah.
because they ran a game that's already been played with the exact amount of people.
And
This
with
game changes a lot
no
if there's
variations. Yeah.
no variations at all. It changes a lot if there's more people in the mix. Then all of a sudden your group has to be a little bit bigger. It gets a little bit more complicated. It changes a lot if the dynamics of the cures are different. Personally, I'm not a fan of being able to buy cures with garnets. I think that
Mhm.
just makes the game even simpler. So in case someone screws up, they can just bail themselves out. Can I give you a crazy plan?
Sure.
Here's how I break this down. Here's how I break this game if I'm Scott or anyone on the other side. I'm holding my cure. I'm like, guys, who wants a point? Because I will touch every single person in this game and I will take my cure right now. Who wants a free point?
Why would everyone else say yes to that? Because that's
They get a point too.
yeah, but they're
Everyone can do it.
giving
Everyone should do it except the zombies. Everyone's going to touch everyone and then drink their cure. Was there a limit to how many people you could touch per
well,
round?
that's I guess the way this breaks the game and this breaks the game in many ways, right?
Yeah,
It's interesting and I like discussing it. You can't touch anyone in the second round because all of the touches have gone through.
sure.
I would assume that the antidote protects you from your last touch. I wouldn't assume that it like protects you from.
I
And
thought it
look,
was
I've
over a
seen.
time period.
I
Is that not
don't
correct?
think it's over. Look, we've had.
Okay.
I've seen some of the contestants in the comment section, so this could be a great one to get clarified. Would
Yeah.
Corey's game breaking plan actually work? Did you see? Paul was actually in the comment section of our first episode.
I'm surprised he has access to a computer in jail.
Let me see if I could pull up his comments because I really enjoyed it. But yeah, I think that's a really good strategy. It
Well,
wouldn't
let
work.
me add to
I'm
that.
confident. I'm
Yeah.
confident it would not work, but I
David
enjoy
Tennant would walk into the room and punch you in the face if you tried to execute
it.
my strategy.
There's no chance that David Tennant is walking in there. Come on, David Tennant clearly like didn't record a single thing until after the games were over. In my opinion, like you can hear. Well, he definitely recorded like the you know, whatever's at the game, but you can see he never actually says the names of the contestants. Watch this. Anytime that he's like, Scott, it's always focused on someone else. He's never actually, maybe it's AI, honestly.
So there's a short tangent I want to go on. In my Big Brother season, Kaser hosted the pressure cooker, Big Brother legend, and at the end of the pressure cooker, he said, "Congratulations, Cameron, you have won." And I got to talk to Kaser at some point, and I was like, "Wait, so is there a version out there that congratulations, Corey, you have won the pressure cooker?" And he's like, "Yeah, there is. Every house guest who was there." So I
Mhm.
like to think that David Tennant has a version of every single situation that could possibly happen in the Genius. He
Yeah,
sat there
sure.
for hours recording.
Uh-huh.
Um, anyways,
Okay,
how you
I found
how you find it?
Paul's comment by the way. Yeah, it
All
was
right, what
on
do we got?
our cast preview, our why you should watch Genius game, which is almost at 7,000 views. Pretty good. Says from at Paul Linton, the serial killer is on the run. It was a mistake by ITV Press on my photo. I have I have emailed you the photo, but please don't post it. I don't want to get caught for my crimes. Come on, Zach. Come to the Corey dark side. Killers win these games.
See, there's two ways to react to that. Oh my God, Paul is such a good sport. I love that guy. Or I lock my doors extra tight tonight. I don't know which one I'm gonna go for. Maybe both.
I really think we lost a good one with Paul. I think luckily the genius will sometimes bring back our first boots. So if we get a season
No.
2, I think we could see a redemption for Paul.
And we're stuck with Ben, who writes encyclopedias in the comment section describing every single subtle move he does. And I love that, Ben. Please keep doing it. But like, again, you don't even have to watch the podcast. Just pull up the YouTube video and look for Ben's comments because he's saying way more than we could.
No, we love it. We love it. I did like that with the first episode out, Ben was saying that he was like, "Oh, the edit didn't show so much." And we're like, "Welcome to the fucking club, man. You're on one episode. You're going to be feeling that a lot moving forward."
Also, and look, I understand Ben is probably one of the most active players on the cast, probably the most active player. I feel like they left a lot more of Ken out of the edit.
Oh, yeah, Ken is
I feel like Ben got his fair share, his slice of the pie chart.
No, this was a big Ben episode. I love Ken's LinkedIn posts. I love his work with No Rules Barred. I have not loved anything that I've seen on the show yet,
He's
and
been
I'm waiting to
chilling.
be proven wrong.
He's loading.
He's chilling hard. He's
Yeah,
really
exactly.
chilling. All right, let's get into round 3.
Round 3. Okay, so Charlotte tells Amanfi she's a zombie, and then Amanfi, apparently he's the only one who doesn't know. It's like him and Allison don't know. At
Yeah.
this point, Amanfi had his whole Ruth Goldberg set up in terms of how to convince everyone is a human. He hears this, then he goes, "Is it Ruth Goldberg?
Yeah,
Ruth
say it
Goldberg.
one more time.
Is it Rude Goldberg or Ruth Goldberg?
Neither.
What is it?
I
Ruth Bader Goldberg?
I love when you screw Ruth Bader Goldberg.
What is
I
it?
love when you screw things up. It's Rube Goldberg.
Rube?
Rube is in Rubina.
I'm typing something separately that has nothing to. Yeah, it is okay. You know what's embarrassing? It's Rube Goldberg. I did Roob.
No,
Ruby Doo.
Ruth Goldberg is great though.
That'd be a
All
sick
right.
casting choice for the 3rd season.
Yeah,
Okay.
people wouldn't
Anyways,
even know.
so Amanfi has this whole plan. He throws it out the window. He's like, "Guys, I'm also a zombie."
Yeah.
And Bedalia almost punches him in the face.
Oh,
Metaphorically, strategically.
Bedalia freaking hates Monfy so much. Like, I'm very excited to watch this storyline progress because you could see Bedalia like lock down emotionally, be like, I am never trusting this guy for the rest of the game. As maybe he should.
Shout outs to Amanfi though. I don't know if he's playing unaware or this is just how he is. He's like, "Yeah, guys, we're all good though, right?"
Yeah.
Like, hey, we all understand how the game works. And he just nestles himself in that room. And I guess he's still a part of that side. He's in all the conversations. He's not ostracized, but it certainly will be remembered. At that point, Ken and Bedalia realize, we're zombies now. We're in danger. And it's all of a sudden Scott's side has nobody. It is just him who's a human, along with the other 4 in the bubble. So I want to ask you about Amanfi. Do you think fessing up at this point is the right call, or just ride it out as a zombie?
Yeah, I think you have to fess up at this point because I think that if, let's say, Scott were to have just lost fair and square because he was the last remaining human who had the least amount of points, I think that that's where you can really like take the blame of being like, you are specifically the reason why my side lost. And you had the opportunity to at least give me a chance and you didn't. I think that puts him in a far worse position versus like he tried his best. And the thing I love about Amanfi is he does try really hard. He makes a lot of moves. That whole thing with like pretending to buy the antidote, it's like it's almost like watching like a little kid playing like while the dinner is happening. You've got like the little kid playing off in like the other room, and they're having this great adventure. That's Amanfi, where it's like nothing he does in this game will actually result in him winning this main match, but it is giving us entertainment. It is giving us something to talk about. But the jig was up. Like you can't keep that up till the very end because you are going to get exposed. He'd already lost the game and he needed to come clean here. And I mean, I think that if the Bedalia relationship can be salvaged to any degree, this was like the only shot of it.
Yeah, it's almost like forget about Bedalia. How about these other people, Charlotte and Scott, and maybe even Allison? Like I didn't hate it at that point. I think again, like they're gonna find out they're zombies very quickly, and it's not hard to figure out how they became zombies at that point. So I think fessing up's the right call. This really could have been just an Amanfi downfall episode. Like the fact that he escapes the deathmatch here is kind of a joke. He does very well in terms of like his social connections are what carry him through the deathmatch candidate being picked. But when that person's picking, when Scott has to pick who he's going up against, that should have been Amanfi. And the fact that it landed on Allison is very understandable. But like sometimes, maybe at that point, him fessing up is what was able to get him over that hump.
Sure.
which I would
Well,
give him some
so
credit for.
before the game ends, we have one more Ben meltdown when Bex just wants to have one final conversation with Scott.
Yeah.
And I think Ben says something where he's like, if you leave now, I will consider that a betrayal in the highest magnitude or something along those lines. It's very dramatic. He very,
He's so good. It's so funny. It's
yeah.
it's so dramatic, and it's just weird to have the super fan nerd archetype also be the biggest personality. Like,
Yeah.
that's a crazy dichotomy.
So who is, and to just talk about Korean Genius for a second, who is like the Ben comparison? Which player is the most? Is it because there's a part of me that's like, is it Kyung Hoon?
Yeah, I thought Amonfi was more Kyung-hoon in terms of
No,
just,
no,
like,
because
the game destroyer.
no, I don't think Amonfi's Kyung Hoon because I don't think
Honestly, the one I thought
Amonfi
for Ben was Sangmin. The super
Sangmin.
active, plays really hard. Well, maybe Dongmin, just very petty as well,
No,
alongside being a great strategist.
I don't think Dong. I mean, Sangmin maybe, but Sangmin doesn't have this paranoia. I think that he's really. I think Ben is really an interesting character. I think that he's so far been like the
Yeah.
biggest mover shaker. It's unfortunate that like I would have loved. I'm excited next episode to hopefully see him in a game that he doesn't know and see what he can come up with all on his own versus just kind of consulting what he's seen.
My God.
But yeah,
Imagine being a student and you have to go to your professor, Ben, and, like, ask him to bump your grade.
why?
Oh
What do
my
you?
God.
I think it'd be great.
Ben No, Ben would give you, like, some roundabout task in order to raise your grade. He's not just gonna say, "Yeah, of course, you've been a good student," or, "No, unfortunately, I don't do that." He'd be like, "Okay, go to your favorite part on campus and take a picture." And then, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's my vibe. And Ben, you can tell me if I'm right. All right, let's talk
You think
about
I like that? I like when a professor does that. Just to be clear,
I like when they
it's
ghost
fun.
me or just bump my grade. So Bex does say, once it's kind of clear how this game is gonna pan out, and by the way, shout outs to this group of 4 for sticking together, because when all these people are turning zombies, it starts to get scary. Like, I was thinking
Yeah,
there was a zombie in that 4, but they stay strong, and it's clear to everyone these guys are gonna be the winners. Bex says she's gonna protect Amonfi and Scott.
yeah.
Now, when we actually get to this deliberation about who are we going to pick, because at some point Scott turns himself into a zombie, knowing he has the least amount of points. I don't even know who he touches; it doesn't really matter, right?
hmm
Um, Beck says, "My number one person I want to protect is Amonfi."
And meanwhile, the rest of the group is saying that Amonfi might be the best person to pick here.
So this final 2 dynamic relationship, whatever we saw in episode 1, is strong enough to help Amonfi in episode 2. So,
Well,
I was a
and
little bit skeptical, but it worked.
we did see, by the way, earlier in the episode, Amonfi leak to Allison specific, not Allison. I keep mixing them up.
Yeah,
Bex specifically that he was the zombie,
yeah,
and that was it was like a quick moment in the episode. You could have missed it right there. First of all, for the bubble, it's just game over because the bubble now knows who the 2 zombies are. They
yeah.
can just win. But I think that bit of honesty that he gave, and I think this is also kind of why this game's not that great, is what kind of saved him because he was
Yeah.
like, or she was like, you know what? Like, Amonfi really does trust me. He set this relationship up at the start. Like, this is my guy. This is a huge asset to me. Um, and like, I'm gonna actually use it.
Yeah. Look, I mean, you could talk all you want about having a close bond, a close relationship, protecting each other until that's realized with real information, with actual, like, trusting someone with your life in the game. I think it's hard to take seriously. That was Amonfi putting his life in Bex's hand, and Bex seemed to reward that, um, that honesty. Now, I think what is very interesting, Zach, because
hmm
ultimately they select Scott. They were deciding between Scott and Allison for completely opposite reasons. One was a big swing in Scott, and the other was, let's try to send someone in who won't come back.
hmm
Okay, they land on Scott. Do you think Scott did anything too wrong in this episode to get in the death match, or is this just kind of unlucky?
I don't think that he did anything wrong this episode. I don't think there's like a clear moment you could point to, like, whereas if he did this a little bit better, he wins. I think what we ultimately see in the Genius, especially when it's the winners getting to choose the loser, this is what happens, right? Scott had set himself up as the biggest strategic player in the first episode. He's vulnerable the second episode. It's just an easy swing to take, especially when um, that you and like your
Yeah.
core is going to be safe. Like this was the spot where someone like Scott was going to lose. And it's very unfortunate because I think Scott added a lot and would have been great. But like I think this was more like not what he did this episode, but more a reason why you maybe don't necessarily want to put yourself at the forefront episode 1, you know?
Yeah, it might sound hypocritical because we talked a lot in our, Welcome to the Genius Game podcast and just in general about having a big threat level and being considered one of the smartest players is actually a positive in the Genius
Yeah.
Game because no one wants to take you to the death match. There is a caveat of if there's a massive joint win with all of your enemies,
Yeah.
that's where specifically in this situation, Scott was kind of screwed. So I don't blame Scott too much. Obviously, we're familiar with the zombie game. That big joint win probably happens 7 out of 10 times the game is played. So like,
Yeah.
I guess it wasn't too unfortunate. But when he is ultimately picked, he has to pick who he's going against. And the choice is almost made for him in a lot of ways. Again, his kind of core of Charlotte. Who else we got?
It was Charlotte,
It's
Ken, and Bedalia. He was not going to
Bedalia.
pick.
They're immediately out of the running. He goes down his list of reasoning for it. And it's between Amanfi and Allison. And he just goes with Allison because she, in his eyes, is easier to beat. Right?
Well, before he picks Allison, obviously, Amanfi offers the same deal that he made last time, which is like, hey, if you don't pick me, I will give a garnet, which
Yeah.
should have been nice and simple. But of course, probably my favorite moment of the episode, Ben decides to chime up there and say, actually, I'll give you a garnet to not choose Allison, which essentially is saying, I will give you a garnet to choose Amanfi right now. Obviously, I hate this. I'm curious if I hate it as a strategic move. I love it for TV. I'm curious if you see any strategic merit in what he just did, or was this just a disaster?
I see some merit. I think Amanfi has a better chance of beating Scott. I'm sure was running in his mind. He's probably wrong about that, or maybe not. Who knows? That's the first note. The second note is if I don't feel like I can work with either of these people, let's make sure one of them goes out. And the third reason, which has no strategy at all and is the truth, and Ben said this much, he felt guilty. He just felt bad about leaving Allison out. She would have been a very useful member in that bubble of 4. It all would have worked out. And Ben is really the reason she was not involved in that group. So, look, Allison survived. All of a sudden, that, insane maneuver he made could prove beneficial because he might lose Amanfi, but hopefully Allison's like, oh, this guy seems, truly not forgiving, whatever the opposite of forgiving is. Like he's actually trying to make amends, and I might be able to work with this guy who's the reason I was in the death match.
Yeah, I think that the issue is that by doing this, Ben has inserted himself for literally no reason with Amanfi, who is now going to still be in the game because he did not choose Amanfi. Amanfi's now going into the next round knowing, hey, Ben like totally just tried to screw me there for literally no reason. I think that if Ben wanted to pull this off in a way that's less good TV, but probably more strategically sound, the move is to give Allison your garnet and have her make the offer herself. Like if you can just slip that over, and I think Ben in the comment actually even said that he saw India or Charlotte's slip the garnet from
Charlotte
last
slip it to
episode.
India, yeah.
Right. Like you could have done that same thing in this episode, slip it over to Allison and have her use her own garnet to be like bartering. I actually don't know if that would work because they would definitely know that she got that garnet from somewhere. But it would definitely be less messy than what he did because it couldn't have been more messy than what he did.
I'm looking at the camera, Zach. See me?
Mm-hmm.
You could have just said nothing, Ben.
You
Just
could
let
have.
it happen. It's nothing to do with you. It was very fun though. I enjoyed it. But we end up in this death match. I'm never a big hater on the philosophy of just pick the person you think you can beat. Oftentimes, that's very hard to evaluate because these games are weird. I don't hate the idea from Scott. I think it's fine. I don't think him and Amanfi had too much beef. So let's talk about the death match. The death match, there's actually not that much to talk about from like a strategic standpoint. The game is pretty simple, but we will talk about it. So It's called Hidden Knots and Crosses. And immediately, Zach, I don't know if you felt this. I felt like, oh God, it's gonna be like Tactical Nori, where like everyone plays knots and crosses in the UK, and we're not familiar with it, so we're not gonna understand the game. It's just tic tac toe, I guess. I get it's like an entire grid usually, but it's called Hidden Knots and Crosses. You got this square grid of a lot of X's and O's, knots and crosses, they call them. You get 90 seconds to look at the board with all the X's and O's laid out. After that, you turn around and they flip them back over to blanks, kind of like you would do a memory game. And then the players start to play. The goal, much like tic tac toe, is to get 3 in a row, 3 black X's in a row, 3 red O's in a row, knots and cross. I'm going to use X's and O's. Just sorry. Now, when it's your turn, you have 2 options. The first option is to blindly swap 2 of the tiles. So if you got 2 X's here, the third X is in the middle, or an O is in the middle, you got to swap that O for an X, and then you get to say, I would like to make a match. Once you make a match, that is plus 3 points, and we're racing to 10. If you're wrong, that's minus 1 point. That's the very, very basic rules of it. So just to summarize, we have this board. You have to memorize the placements of them. One person's X's, one person is O's, and you have to try to swap the tiles in order to create your matches. And if you don't know any of them, you could either swap blindly or just choose to reveal one of the tiles. Is there any problems you had in my explanation, Zach? Is that about it?
No, I mean, I was understanding.
So now there's one wrinkle to this game that's a little weird. There's like 4 things. It's not just X's and O's. There's like red X's, black X's, red O's, and black O's.
I think they were gold and
gold,
white,
yeah.
But yeah.
There's 2 sets of each, 2 colors. So that was a little bit odd to me. You had to make sure that you didn't just match the whether it's an X or an O, you also had to match the color. So it's just like one extra layer you have to memorize.
Yeah.
Which makes it more difficult, certainly, because if it was just X's and O's, I think the game would have been over quite quickly. My first question, Zach. Understanding this game, does it ever make sense to just reveal a tile during your turn?
No, not particularly, because it's swap or reveal, right?
Yeah.
The reveal only gives information. I mean, it gives information to both of you, right? And that's information that could very much be used against you in the upcoming, like if they go. I think you're better off just doing the swap and then revealing what you got versus because if you do the reveal, you can't do the swap. So even if you find something that's useful for you, you have to wait until the next turn to use it. And then at that point, it might have already been stolen by the other person.
Exactly. And that's what happened eventually. But the problem with the reveal is the other person sees it and they get to act on it first. I think the only benefit I can see to using that reveal is if you like where you stand. Allison, at some point in this death match, felt very comfortable about her position. She had a nice lead. If she just kept revealing the same tile to like burn her turns, knowing that Scott's the one who has to make something happen, I think that could have been worth it. But then you could get in a deadlock very quickly if Scott starts doing the same thing, and they'd have to introduce some other rule, I guess.
Do you have a specific, when it comes to memory games, do you have a specific way that you like to like just put them in your head and memorize them? Because I personally don't. I don't have a set like go-to strategy for something like this. Curious if you
No, I would do exactly what Ben suggests to Allison, or just try to find the spots where you only need to change one tile just because it makes it a little bit easier on yourself. But I think like mnemonics, every one of these like memory questions requires like a different style of or a different solution to memorizing it. And I didn't have anything in this game. Last game, Zach pulled up the grid and told you how to solve it. I don't know if there's much of a solution to this game. It's just about remaining focused and having a strong memory, because once you lose track of the board and where your pieces are or your tiles are, it's almost impossible to recover.
Well, now here's a real question that I had when I was thinking about it, and I'm not sure if this could work. Maybe there's a rule against it. There was a point where like Allison had 2 of the 3, right?
Yeah.
So necessarily, what's stopping Ben let's say, from just automatically swapping like one of
You're talking about
those
Scott?
Scott, yeah, sorry. What's stopping Scott from swapping one of the ones where it's like 2 out of 3, like swapping it with some random tile and then just locking in 3 random pieces? Because then what Allison's gonna have to do is she's not gonna be able to complete that one because she's gonna have to still put back the piece that originally belonged there and then reveal something. But she's if you keep swapping that one out until she gets lucky with you happening
Yeah.
to swap in the exact same tile, that one's kind of dead for her. She's gonna have to keep making the same move.
You lose a point though every time you try to make a match and you're wrong.
Mm,
So if Scott can keep, being annoying, but like ultimately he could do your plan. He just
yeah.
can't check 3 tiles every time, which
Mm,
he gets. So let's just talk about how it plays out because it's again, the play-by-play is not as important, but Scott gets his first match, Allison matches with her first match. Ultimately, Allison takes the lead, but they're equalized at 6 at some point. And then Scott starts getting things wrong. And he gets all the way back down to 3 points. There
mhm.
is 3 wrong guesses in a row where Allison gets up to 9 with, another correct match. And at that point, Allison is so clearly in front that all she has to do is like wait for her moment to have a surefire match. And Scott is forced to continue guessing over and over and over again. And he gets it right eventually, but it's just too late. So I want to shout out Allison. She just played perfectly. I really don't have any notes. I think Scott got flustered. It's a game that can snowball very quickly if you just lose track of the board. Um, but like, you're not going to see a better deathmatch being played by Allison. Out of the 4 deathmatch performances we've seen, she's got the number 1 spot.
Yeah, yeah. I was very impressed by Allison. I think she did a great job. I think there's definitely a bias against her as just the older woman. It's kind of
Yeah,
like easier to be like, oh, we look at these games often, right? And something like Survivor, we see the older woman, we just assume she's not going to be as strong in challenges. And that's because of a lot of the ways that
yeah,
Survivor challenges are structured, for instance. The genius that doesn't exist. Like as much as like that bias still might exist, like truly anyone can succeed at these things. And I also think it's great to see because it's look the South Korean genius. I think like some seasons it's literally like 8 men, 3 women, right? So to
yeah.
see, I think this is the first time I've ever watched the genius where there are more women than men right now. So I was happy for Allison. I think she did a great job here. And it was nice to actually get to see her on the show this episode.
You want to do a quick eulogy for Scott?
Mhm.
When it comes to Scott, first of all, I don't think he did too much wrong. I think
Yeah.
he could have played a little bit more optimally, stayed more under the radar last episodes. There's things to nitpick. In general, no big downfall for Scott. I think he played reasonably well. Losing to Allison in this death match, like, is it embarrassing because he picked her thinking she'd be the easiest beat? Maybe, but she played really well. It's not like Scott necessarily crumbled in this death match. Like she was just perfect. Now, I think the one big fault I would give Scott compared to the other people in his alliance, he just kind of played the field a lot less. He
Mhm.
was like with his group, and that was it. Charlotte was trying to talk to Ben and India. For some reason, India was not with their group, even though she was in the previous episode. Amanfi has his connection with Bex. You can definitely criticize like Badalia and Ken, but they were not the figureheads of that other side. So he basically put himself in a position where if the other side wanted to take a shot, he was the shot. So
Well,
that's my one thing to criticize, but
I would push back on that just because like the best part of the episode was seeing Scott continuously try to talk to Bex and be like, "Hey, can we talk real quick? Can
yeah.
we talk real quick?" And that I think could have worked because Bex did go
Mhm.
into it intending to try and protect him. It didn't work out because I think that just Amanvi had the stronger bond with her and she wasn't going to stick her neck out for 2 people. So Scott let go. So maybe if he had like tried less to actually win the game in the moment and like by pulling
Yeah.
Bex into these private rooms and done more of like, hey, Ben, hey, India, hey, Basha, like I long term do want to work with you guys. Like that, like you can kind of do like the big game player thing for
Yeah.
Ben. I think that there was a route there, but ultimately, I think we are nitpicking here. I think Scott did great. I think it was an unfortunate loss for the show because he was such a big player in that first episode. But at the same time, that's the genius for you.
what I enjoy is the two power players, seemingly in terms of directing the strategic motion of the game, were Scott and Ben. And you might say,
Mhm.
"Oh, now Scott's gone. Is this going to be a steamroll?" Absolutely
No,
not, because Ben is
no.
Ben. So now
Yeah.
Ben's biggest adversary is Ben, and that's going to be extremely fun to watch. I'm also kind of
Also
curious to see.
uh,
Go ahead.
oh, no, I was gonna say also, I mean, I think Charlotte has come out as such a force in these 2
Yeah,
games. She gets the zombie and, like, I think she instantly like, she's playing hard, and playing hard in this game was playing very cards open, but, like, she played very optimally. Amanfi as well, I think he is a big player and someone who is going to be a mover and shaker in this game, and then I think you've got a lot of, pretty interesting people, around them when it comes to, like, India and I
yeah.
think Bedalia has a lot going on with his
I love Bedalia. Oh my god,
yeah.
it's a
So I
mess.
am very excited. I don't think that like we're gonna have like a Scott-shaped hole for the rest of the season like it was with Paul, but I do think it's a big loss.
I'd like to
So
let's talk about the Sangi right now.
okay.
The one thing I'd like to do before doing the Sangi is use the opportunity to shout out just a few players who we haven't talked about yet. Not much to talk about. Ken's under the radar. We talked a little bit about Bedalia. I want to shout out India. Um,
Oh
I
yeah.
think she's just been playing really well. She is giving me like Hyunmin vibes in certain ways where she's just like finds her way on the winning team. And she's clearly a very meaningful voice in these winning teams as well. It's not just her sitting beside. A lot of her like commentary has gone to Charlotte or to Scott in the first episode, or
Mhm.
this episode, Ben. But I think it's very clear that like she's a respected person in that house, and she's like a very active contributor to the strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get to the Sangi. I definitely know who I think it deserves to
It's
go
not
to.
close. It's a Monfy. Come on.
It's a
It's a Monfy.
Amalfi, yeah. I mean, for
Yeah,
the person
it's
who was, like, playing the hardest, yes, Ben probably played the best by ultimately getting the strategy and
yeah.
locking his alliance in, but that was not the most fun gameplay of the episode. He's actually the one who probably, like, broke the game the worst. So, in terms of who played the biggest, who played, the hardest for basically no reason this episode, 100% Amalfi. Alright, and before, we wrap up, Corey, we're going to be
Yeah.
doing a death match every episode, me versus you. Because this was a memory competition, I figured that we could test
So
our
bad.
memory here. I think you've got the advantage on this one 100%. So, what we're going to do is we're just going to go back and forth, and in order, I want us to name the main matches from the South Korean Genius. And whoever forgets one
Wow.
first is the loser.
It's gonna
So,
be
would you
early
like
season 2.
It's gonna be so we're gonna do season 1. Would you like
Okay.
to start or would you like me to start? And by the
The
way, you
one
don't need to get, like,
yeah.
the exact name as long as you can, like, you
Okay.
know
It's the 1, 2, 3 game is the first game.
Okay, it was the election game was number 2.
Episode 3 is Abundance and Famine, which is kinda similar to a bank heist in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and episode 4 was zombie game, which was also a lot
Honestly,
like
to anyone, who hasn't seen the South Korean Genius, I'd implore you to go watch that episode because I think it's very
yeah.
interesting to see this strategy be developed. It's a,
Yes,
it's very
agreed.
fascinating. Instead of Ben just being able to cheat and know it off his
Yeah,
top of his head.
uh-huh.
5 is scamming horse race.
6 is, hmm,
Oh, you're cooked.
6
You don't know
is
this.
no, 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 I know what 6 is. It's the, one where it's like, thieves and whatever, and like,
Catch the
it was
burglar.
the group of 3 catch the burglar. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Then it is open pass.
Open pass. So that's final 7s. Then final
Yeah.
6 would be Kong's Dilemma.
Kong's Dilemma. Final 5 would be expression auction.
Is that right?
It
That's
is
right.
right. I'm certain.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have gotten that one, so I got lucky. Number 4 is Confined Scamming Horse Race.
3 is
Completely
5-5
agree.
game.
Okay, we're not gonna do a final match. So then season 2. All
Sure.
right. Season 2 is a food chain.
So this is where I'm in trouble because it's one of 2 games. It's
Okay.
either the king game, but it's not. It's like seat exchange, right?
Yep. Seed
Seat
exchange.
exchange.
Well,
Okay.
thank you for the next one is King
Yeah.
Game.
Did you know the king game?
I did know that one, yeah.
So Episode 4 is fascinating. I'm thinking it's the blackout game.
Yes, you are right.
Okay.
I believe that episode 5 is 7 Commandments.
Yeah, I wouldn't have gotten that. I mean, you're gonna have to check. I don't really know.
I'm pretty certain it is.
So episode 6 is the final 7, right?
Episode 6 would be final 8, I
8?
believe. Yeah.
Oh, this is the Monopoly game.
Yep. All right, then it is
Final 6 or final 7?
no, final 7 is like I think it's called God's Judgment. It's the dice game.
Shoot. So now I'm at the final 6. Is that right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. So this is interesting. I know at some point we have Office Food Chain. I don't think that's yet. I'm trying to think if Hong Chul was in the minus auction. Is kind of my big question. Let's think about this. So there's the final 3 is that, the final 4 is that. I think this might be it for me. I'll go minus auction. Is it minus auction? Or is that
It
5?
is minus auction. No, it is
Okay.
minus auction. 5 is
Okay.
Office Food Chain.
Office Food Chain. Final 4. So Jawan is still there. Oh. Is this I think this is where I go out. Is this Shoots and Ladders?
It is not Shoots and Ladders.
Okay, what is it?
Unfortunately. It's that one where the boy band comes in.
Oh, it's more or
And
less or whatever.
yeah, and they've
The
got
big
like the
deal
different
game. The big
colors.
deal game.
Big deal game, yeah. All
Yeah,
right. Well, look,
I would have been okay in season 3. Season 2 kind of screwed me.
I see. I think season 3, season 3. Some of like those early ones, like season 3, episode 2. I mean, off the top of my head, I could not tell you.
I think it's yeah, it doesn't matter. This is just to prove to
Yeah.
all of you guys who are genius South Korea fans that we're not fake fans, okay?
No,
I guess we
I
are. We
think
can't even name all the main matches.
yeah, I think that I think we've proven ourselves. I also think that like the Genius is a pretty inclusive club because anyone's reaction to finding out you watch the Genius is never like, "Oh, really?" Like, "Pff, how much?" It's like, "Oh my god, me too. Thank God someone else knows about this show."
Well, okay. Before we end, Zach, do you want to tell people the schedule moving forward?
Oh, sure. So, what we're going to be doing for the rest of the season, and first of all, like for you guys to make it to the end of this podcast, so excited to have you. Thank you. We know it's like a small show in England, but we love it, and we're so excited to do this.
The
So,
United Kingdoms, as you call it.
if absolutely Ruby Goldberg. All right.
Yeah.
So, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing exit interviews this week. They're going to be a little bit delayed. We're going to have those out Monday. So then we'll have the next episode out as soon as the episode finishes. So Wednesday, Thursday. We'll maybe have some bonus content in there later on. And then in general, the schedule is going to be something like recap Wednesday, recap Thursday, exit interview Friday. If you have any questions, by the way, like fan questions or anything, feel free to like tweet those at us. We're recording these a little bit ahead of time, so we're not able to necessarily like respond, but would love to hear feedback. Leave a review, please, if it's a good review. I mean, and make sure to subscribe. And yeah, is there anything else you want to say, Corey?
Not too much. We know thegenius.com for the feed. The main thing I want to say is like I know there's a little bit of frustration of how do I find the episodes. I just would give it a little bit of time. I
Look,
think these episodes are going to become more accessible.
Yeah, I would say anyone who's made it an hour and 8 minutes into this podcast
I'd
has
hope you
managed to
found it.
they've managed to find the episode, so I don't think we got to worry about that. Also, we will be having more guests throughout, so it's going to be a lot of fun. We got a lot of great names in there,
and they're all nerds.
Oh yeah,
every one of them.
Should we get America? I think we could get America.
She's a nerd, but beyond that, I don't know if I don't want to put her on Paul's radar.
Okay, that's fair.
So that's all we've got. We appreciate you. The next you'll hear from us is Monday with some exit interviews. Super excited to do those. Here's what I will say. Tweet to me and Zach if you have any good questions we should ask Paul or Scott. And outside of that, thank you all, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.